Hello and welcome to the Narrowbox Comics channel again. I'm Scott Gazzard and I'm doing a video on Predator vs Wolverine. When Marvel announced this, I know I gave them some kind of stick for it, but I think I said something along the lines of, if you'd fallen into a coma in the 90s and this was the first book you'd picked up, you could have been forgiven for thinking that you were only been asleep for a week. And I think that kind of is true. You know, I've read this book already, and I can honestly say it isn't too far off of what you were getting in the 1990s with the Predator crossovers, and that is not a bad thing. And you know, that's a great thing. So I'm actually kind of happy to see something like this on the shelves, because for me, Predator is just a fantastic character. The films are just amazing. I remember it's one of the first horror kind of films I ever saw as a kid, and it absolutely blew me away. I think the first ever film I saw that was a horror was The American Werewolf in London. And I was terrified of that, and I didn't want to watch horror ever again. And then my mates said, let's watch The Predator. And they all came around to my house because I only one with a VCR and a mum that would let 10 boys come around and watch a 18, and we all loved it. It was absolutely amazing, and I couldn't get over what an amazing character the Predator was. And I knew he had legs. And then Dark Horse got the license to do the comics, and I loved those books. I absolutely loved them. The first run of Predator comics I had was a direct follow-up to the first film, and it was a sequel of sorts of Dutch, the main hero from Predator. His brother was a police officer in LA, and huge build, Arnold Schwarzenegger looking fella, and he ended up having to fight a Predator in the steaming hot summer of LA. And obviously there were some genetic markers in the Predator 2 movie of that story, and Dark Horse definitely did get a great grasp of the characters. I don't know if they were the ones that invented the, you know, when the summer gets really hot, the Predators come back, but they definitely played into it, and it's definitely something that was included in the second film, which was also great with Danny Glover, and I really enjoyed it. Now, it all went wrong when you started getting different movies made. You know, you went off-piste, they went off-piste, they kind of started trying to invent. And I think Dark Horse had taken the mystique of the Predator. They found a beautiful groove for telling Predator stories. And they absolutely did an amazing job. And so I was hoping, I was interested to see how Marvel would deal with the character. And they've pretty much taken a page out of the old Dark Horse playbook. So what we get straight off the bat is an injured Wolverine, kind of, you know, really badly injured, you know, expecting he's running for his life. The only reason he's still alive at this point is because of his healing factor. And he's being chased by a Predator. He's on the back foot. Now, this is a character that's part of the X-Men. You know, he's fought way worse enemies than the Predator, you know, that we've seen in the movies. And so, you know, the Brood, for example, you know, he's regularly had run-ins with analogues of these 20th Century Fox film licensed characters that Marvel have adapted. So it's not surprising. His teammates can shoot lasers out of their eyes. This is not something that's unheard of for him. So how is he struggling so badly against a Predator? Well, we don't find out. And that is the brilliance of this book, because we want to know how this fight's going to go. And we see that Wolverine's not doing particularly well, which doesn't make much sense from the Wolverine we know. I mean, come on. He was designed to be the best that he is at what he does, and that's his shtick. And we all love Wolverine. But as much as we love Wolverine, we love seeing Wolverine get his ass kicked and come back fighting. And I'm really this having him start off on the back foot is just a great. I mean, it's literally the only way you could have really gone. I mean, there are other ways you could have gone, but this is the main way you could have gone to illustrate that, you know, he's outmatched. They did this exact same scenario with the Ultimate Wolverine versus Hulk. You know, where we saw Wolverine on a mountain torn in two, and so it's a great way of illustrating that the character is outmatched without having to show it. We just drop us into it cold. So the Wolverine is now hiding from the Predator because the Predator's got the upper hand. And yeah, that's some excellent threat build-up. So really pleased with that. But then this is where it gets really interesting. We get the cool heat vision motif on the logo there, and then we get the backstory of the Predator, the Yautja, as the Yautja, or I don't know how you pronounce that. I had heard this name before, and it was never in the Dark Horse original, but it was in an extended universe kind of thing that fans or books made up. That the Yautja were the Predator, and they were a species that were conquered themselves, as I recall, and they had to fight to get their own homeworld back. And I think that was alluded to in the Robert Rodriguez that did it? Predators film, the one with the serial killers on a strange alien planet. The idea was that the Predators were trying to make. The idea in the stories, from what I gather, were the Predators trying to make their comeback, having been displaced from their own world, and that's why they didn't have a home world as we would see it. We'd only see these satellite worlds where they practice their hunting. So they were scattered, and this was the way that they dealt with that. So anyway, it's just it's not really important, but it's just an interesting aside and a view of the character, because Wolverine's got a rich back history that we kind of are privy to. The Predators have a large backstory catalogue of things that have happened to them too, and I think that's definitely evident in this writing team. I don't know who Benjamin Percy is, but he's done a fantastic job of kind of going. I get the feeling that he's aware of the histories, and I think that's important, because when you're writing it, you don't need to tell the whole history, but you should definitely, as a writer, have a grasp of what that history is. And I think obviously with Wolverine, in the terms of the story development, Wolverine has got more history that the fans will be more familiar with than Predator has. But I think having that in the back burner, you know, that the Predators have not had it easy either, I think it's a great addition to this story. So yeah, hats off to the creative team for that. Ken Lashley's art now gives ways to Greg Land. And I know you might be thinking, what pornography is he using as his references models? Well, I'd actually think he's actually drawing a lot of this straight off of his own recognizance, shall we say. I don't know if that's a word. But yeah, we get to see Wolverine in his natural habitat. Now, this is interesting to me, because this Wolverine's natural habitat is this. He lives like an animal. This is who he is. This is what he is. This is why we love him so much. You know, I remember the Frank Miller Wolverine story back in the day. You know, it started with him in the Yukon fighting a bear, and that was the sort of thing that got me into Wolverine. So this is imagery that we want to see more of. You know, this is the Wolverine. Hones his craft, living in the unforgiving nature. He's a brutal killer, but he's also got a soft side. You know, he was devising a way. He doesn't fight and kill for no reason. He has a purpose, and he doesn't have much love for human beings. And then we get the contrast to that is the Predator doing what he does. Now, what they've done here is they've linked, in this story, they link that Predator's youthful days to Wolverine's youthful days, and I just think that's an excellent thing, because you know, we know what happens to Wolverine over the course of his life, so it makes sense. So then we get Wolverine. He's, young Wolverine is now visiting the bar because obviously he has pelts to sell. He needs money, and you can't live like a wild animal as a human being for any length of time. We are social creatures, and despite his protestations, we know that Wolverine is a social animal, and he likes human beings despite himself. And this is because he is one of us. So that's well handled here. They're going back into a town and dealing with people. And he gets approached by this shifty looking dude who claims his son has been kidnapped, and so on and so forth. And so, he gets Wolverine to come and help him. Now, the plot itself is simplistic. It's very basic. It's moving the characters to where they need to be. And this is exactly the sort of thing that you expect from a Predator X someone book. It's kind of going through the motions, and usually the payoff to this is that, I think it was Batman who was doing something and then he crosses paths with the Predator and then something else happens. But what this book does that's so good to see is it kind of takes away that randomness and replaces it with something a little bit more relational. They're clearly creating a parallel between these characters, and that pays off at the end of the story. So, you get to see they've created a bit of mystique. There's more going on here than we're being told. And obviously, the best way to tell a Predator story is with no words. And this is something that Dark Horse got around really well. And I remember they really did a great job with they did a Dark Horse Presents one shot where a human pilot was talking to his co-pilot about flying his passengers, but it was actually overlaid over the top of predators dispatching to an alien world to undergo their ritual hunt. And it was just so excellently done. And obviously lacking that B-roll plot to kind of do that with, that Dark Horse set up, they've just gone straight for the visuals. And it's good, but at the same time, it kind of seems a little bit, untethered. And when I was reading these pages, I was like, what's going on here? What's going on here? And then we see the Predator comes along, civilization, much the same as Wolverine does. So we're getting this mirror going across. Anyway, I don't really want to spoil this book for people who are going to buy it, but I just wanted to touch on those points. So we get some backstory, more story kind of parallels between the Predator and the Wolverine. And then we get to what you expect to find in Predator. All the milestones are being crossed off. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to close the book, and I'm just going to draw your attention to the fact that it's 20th Century Studios book. What's going on? Marvel's way down here in the corner, in association with. So I'm kind of thinking that they're going to take this story and remove some of the history. But then with the cover, we're seeing the Weapon X Wolverine fighting a Predator. And from what we've just seen inside, this is not set then. So what's going on? Well, it seems to me that they are taking a slower burn approach to this story, and I think that is excellent. I'm really intrigued, and I've got to say that I'm going to follow this series. I'm absolutely fascinated, and I want to learn as much about this series as I can. So I would say, Marvel, great job. This is exactly the way that it should be approached, and it's a very promising start. The one thing I would draw your attention to is this is $7.99, and now comic books are in the price range of your mangas. You can get a whole manga for $7.99. I find this incongruency. It was just something I wanted to point out, because what we're getting in terms of value, this is a great story, no doubt, but is it worth $7.99? I'm not so sure. Not so sure. But that's a personal question for yourselves. I'm just looking at that as somebody who works in the industry now, new to the industry, trying to fathom what customers can actually tolerate financially. And this is a fairly expensive book, but I think it's a lot more than 20 pages. I can't remember. I didn't count them all, but it feels like a lot of book for the money. And yeah, it's fun. I recommend it. I'm looking forward to reading the next. I don't know how many issues are coming. I would like to know in advance whether this is limited or a continuous run. I personally don't see the mileage beyond 4-5 issues of this. And I think trying to extend it any longer than that would make it boring. But yeah, because it's Predator. At the end of the day, he's not the most complex character in the world. And it doesn't seem that they're going to tell the story from that perspective. Now, maybe that will change, but I doubt it. And yeah, I would recommend this book. I think it's worth picking up, and yeah, I'm interested to see what anyone else would say about this book. Would you think it was a good book? Did you like it? If you want to leave notes in the comments about that, I'd appreciate it. I know that people at Narrowbox would too as well. So yeah, that's Predator vs Wolverine. Thanks for listening. Bye.